if you can hold on for just a few moments, I will begin to dispel some fairy tale myths that I guarantee you that you believe in. So as I jumped on my computer this morning and I was going to do a search, this DuckDuckGo offers a pocket feature of articles, and one of the articles that popped up was something about mindfulness training and how effective it was. And for whatever reason, it caught my eye, and I began to read the article, and I found out a doctor by the name of Judson Brewer had developed this mindfulness training in such a sense that people were now quitting smoking, or were able to quit smoking at 5 times the previous amount. Now, I'm an analytical skeptic just by nature, and so I clicked the link and I began to study, and I'm not too trusting of certain fields. And so as I began to dive in and read the in-depth scholastic material, I saw some pretty horrendous flaws in the nature of these studies. So who is this Judson Brewer that's so bold as to say, I can help you? Who is so confident of his methods and is spouting and touting this knowledge that my method of stopping smoking is 5 times as much? Like, first of all, in a common sense fashion, that doesn't make any sense to me, because if it was this effective, why hasn't the whole world heard about it? Why is the tobacco empire not fallen? Why has everybody that smokes not quit smoking since they all want to? 500% more effective. Who wouldn't try that? And so again, I began skeptical off the bat, and so I began reading through the material, and I find that first off, the study only consisted of 88 people. You heard this correctly. His study of being 5 times more effective than the past was based off of 88 people. Now, if you know anything about science, if you know anything about data and surveys and statistics, if you use a small enough portion size, you can make the data say anything you want it to say. And as I read behind another psychologist that was talking about hope, like, we've got this new training, and they were actually referring to Judson Brewer's work. As they were referring to it, they were like, yeah, the study of 88 people, blah, blah, blah. And they're putting their faith in Judson Brewer's study and of these 88 people. But it actually gets worse than that. As the people were being assigned their groups, you find out that 47 of those candidates were put into freedom from smoking sessions, while the other 41 candidates were put in the mindfulness training sessions. And all this was supposedly done by computer random generated processes. But people feed that data into the computer, and it's already beginning to look skewed because you've got a smaller sample size than the test group size. And so that is already a percentage advantage for anybody out there who understands a little bit of math. But it gets worse than that. In the freedom from smoking group, 47 people entered the program, but only 32 graduated from the program and made it through all 17 weeks. Of the 41 that entered the mindfulness training group, only 29 came out. And so our study group wasn't even 88 people. It was actually more like 61 people who were in this study group. Now, this foundational study that gives Judson Brewer credibility and focus, this guy he's on TED Talks, and I guess maybe a lot of people could be on TED Talks, but they're considered, to be leaders in their field sometimes, and people on the outside that don't know their qualifications would just consider them that because they're on a TED Talk. And so on top of this, it's quoted in the National Library of Medicine, and it's on PubMed, and this documentation is out there that this mindfulness training approach to stopping smoking is 5 times more efficient based off a survey of 32 people against 29 people. So let's just make the math here for a second. If you have 100 people, so this is the reason you want your sample sizes to be large when you're doing studies. And so if you have 100 people and one person quit smoking or didn't quit smoking, it would only affect the group by 1%. But if you cut that in half, all of a sudden it affects the whole group by 2%. Or if you cut a group size down to 30 individuals, then each person accounts for 3%. Or one person could, if in a 10-person group, could account for 10% of the results. And with the sample size as small as 29 people, just a couple of people more that actually quit smoking could hugely skew the data. But because this research was done and because it was scientific, it is now quotable. Now, to further make things awful, people in these studies were also, some of them were on nicotine medication. This was not excluded from the study. And you're not even told who the people were that had it or who the people were that did not have it, just that it was included in the study. If you're truly trying to compare freedom from smoking methods and training against mindfulness training, you absolutely want to exclude external medicines, and that just wasn't done. And how do we know what really went on there? Further, it is actually stated in the research, it was like, maybe this 500% advantage was because of the poor performance of freedom from smoking programs in general. See, freedom from smoking has been around long enough to know that it really doesn't work well. Which, to any thinking person, you might actually ask yourself the question, well, why did you compare mindfulness training against freedom from smoking if it doesn't work well anyway? Why wouldn't you take the best methods instead of a program that doesn't work? Now, the justification in the paper is, well, these programs are, pretty similar, so we want to compare similar programs, but, we probably don't want to compare ourselves against nicotine patches or anything like that. And it's actually a candid statement at the end that this needs more research, to be validated. But it is 500% more effective, and that is what has been touted, and that's what gives this guy credibility. He has an institution or some kind of group that's given credibility based off of this research. Now, these other methods, I don't know if it's freedom from smoking in particular or just other behavioral modification methods, have had a horrendous treatment rate for 30 plus years. And that's one of the reasons they're trying to develop a new mindfulness training scenario. But like I said, comparing it with a small sample group size is really not even comparing it. But why would you do that? Well, this mindfulness training technique can also be applied to eating disorders. So this one-size-fits-all program, not only will it apply to smoking, I'm 500% more successful in smoking, let's apply it to overeating. Let's also apply it to anxiety disorders. And the reason they want to do this is because they offer weeks of classes. And this guy is very vocal. He's like, I've got 3 different applications. You've got these applications that help you become mindful. And I want you to think about this for a second too. As I was reading about what mindfulness was, this is very close to like meditation. They call it like being present, being in the moment. And being present and being in the moment and being hyper-focused with your mind on what you're feeling and doing, etc., is a lot like spiritual meditation. So where is science and psychology trying to take us at this point in time, and why? So he's like, we've got these 3 apps, and basically they come in 30-minute sessions to help you be more mindfully focused. Well, I read that here today in September of 2023, but this study is from 2008. and 11. Now, again, the study boldly, well, not boldly, but it clearly states this needs more. But, if you've got a golden goose, go with it, baby. So it needs more study, but we're going to take it as it is, and we're going to build institutions, and we're going to build programs, and we're actually going to give this to tens of thousands of people. Like, imagine yourself, if you want to quit smoking, and you see that tens of thousands of people have gone through this program and it's 500% more successful, why would you not sign up? And if you did sign up and nothing happened, you wouldn't be the better or the worse for it, because you really wouldn't know, because, well, it's, not everybody has the same results. But in the past, we've had 500%, even though that's only referencing a group of 29 people against a group of 32 people in a one-time survey. Oh, I think you can see where this begins to terribly break down, but they have been peddling this since then. Now, here's what I was talking about, helping the fog to evaporate. I get into debates all the time with people about the fields of psychology and science. And I said they're not as credible as you would like for them to believe. Now, I am for good insight. I am absolutely for hard functioning, workable science, hands-on science. I am good with those things. But in this example above, you can see how the field of psychology or psychiatry has dabbled in the field of science, pretending to be scientific, and with all of that has created something to sell to the masses, and it's focused around mindfulness training, about how to meditate, how to think, how to be in your soul, how to be more aware of who you are and more in touch and maybe more relaxed and more focused, and learning about your triggers and learning about who you really are. And that really begins to sound very religious to me. It has a very religious flavor to it. You see, the church's job is actually to heal people from their brokenness. But in our day and age, pastors who are just, maybe they're studying up in their scriptures to a degree, but they're really not staying abreast and not really educating themselves and not really reading and learning and growing and applying themselves as they should. And I would say the base of that is, first of all, to be reading the scriptures diligently and letting the Lord guide you so that you can see through things. The Bible says you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And if you know the truth, you will be set free. I think a lot of times we're studying in the wrong areas because maybe we're studying for the sake of presentation, or studying for the sake of maybe I can appear to be better, or studying to impress a crowd, etc., instead of studying the scriptures, letting the Lord guide our research and our understanding so that we can see through the shenanigans like I have just mentioned. So it is the church's job to actually get into people's lives and to heal their brokenness, but we have been turning this over steadily to the professionals. The professionals who's taken a study in 2011, claims that it works. They're, trying to cover their tracks by saying it needs more research if somebody wants to research it. But in the meantime, we're going to peddle this and help people, but not like we're helping our pockets. You see, it's the church's job to not just fall for an appeal to authority, or not just fall to percentages that can be falsely created or falsely endorsed. And we're definitely not supposed to be turning over the spiritual aspects of how we need to interact and engage with God the Father and meditate on His Word and spend time with Him. We shouldn't be turning that over to somebody that's teaching mindfulness training. Like, I don't know if the church can help you in this area, so you probably need to get some professional help. And, they're really good with these mindfulness things. Maybe they'll be able to help you out. I'll tell you this. If you want some kind of program to follow, if you will devote 30 minutes a day like they did in the freedom from smoking and the mindfulness training. I don't think it was every single day. But what I'm saying, if you really want a program to help you, dedicate and devote 30 minutes a day of mindfully being aware of what the scriptures teach and see what the Lord brings out of your life. Why don't we begin to peddle the truth that it is so that it can help us to see things that actually aren't working and to see God where He is working. Thank God for the truth. Thank Jesus Christ for guiding and leading us. And I pray that this information will open your mind at least a little more than it has been.